What's up, guys? Welcome back to this episode of Healing Unfiltered. I'm super pumped for today. I think I say that every episode, but this time it's true every time, but it's like exceptionally true this time because I have my great friend Allison here with me, who I met through yoga. I've mentioned on a couple other episodes before that I started going to a yoga studio in the area and have become obsessed. And Allison and I just kind of hit it off and I think have a really similar mindset. And so when I asked her to join the podcast, she graciously accepted. And we're going to talk a little bit today about yoga, mental health, the benefits of it, some of the misconceptions of it too. I think there's a lot people don't understand about yoga. And we're just going to dive in. So without
Cool.
further ado, Allison, welcome. Tell
Thank
us a little
you.
bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Allison, as you've come to find out. I'm a 500-hour certified yoga teacher. I haven't been teaching for very long, only since December of 2023, but I have been practicing since about 2014. So, like many people, my yoga journey started in a dark place. I was really not doing well mentally, physically, drinking a lot, doing some other things I shouldn't have been doing. And it was because I was in just like a really depressed state in my life. And that's when I found yoga and started practicing. And it's always just been going uphill from there. So that's kind of my yoga story. As far as me personally, I've always been analyzing people or things people do since I was a child, both on a perspective that is more of a defensive mode and also in a way that was more curiosity. So my grandmother used to analyze handwriting. So that prompted which I think we talked about before.
Yeah,
So
so
that
cool.
prompted my interest in understanding this connection between how we move through life and how that comes out in just these tiny little nuanced ways. And then from there, I don't know, continued to be interested in people. And then it became more of the most extreme types of people that I was really curious in, because how do you best understand why people do what they do than to go to the people who are the most extreme serial cult leaders and things like that. So I dove down that path from probably 16 until after grad school. And here we are now.
I love it. And I think this is one of the main things we'll talk about today, but just the influence yoga can have on people physically and mentally. And like you said, you've been practicing for forever and now you're teaching. You
Yeah.
obviously are well versed in human beings and kind of understanding them, like you said. And you studied, what was your major and what did you go to grad school for again?
So my major in undergrad was sociology, criminal justice. My
Yeah.
major in grad school was criminal justice, but all of my projects and everything that I ever did was surrounding more of the psychology aspect and
Yeah.
personality development of wayward populations. And unfortunately, I don't test well. So when I wanted to go to school for was forensic pathology,
Yup.
but it just
It's a
didn't
lot
work
of
with
tests.
my brain. Yeah, I couldn't,
Yeah.
it just didn't work. And so I had to go a different route. And thankfully, I had really great teachers who let me do whatever I wanted to because I was passionate about it.
Yeah, and we're finding out so much about the different styles of learning and how much classical education holds people back from doing what they love to do or what they're interested in. And obviously
Right.
that worked out for the better in your case because you ended up here. But, I think that
Yeah.
there's so much to be said about the path that we take and then the path that's kind of, I don't know if chosen for us is the right word for it, but to that example of you would have been down a totally different path if the structure
Right.
of it wasn't holding you back in a certain way. This is kind of a random thought, but when you were talking about handwriting analysis, and I know we did talk about this
Yeah.
before, but how it says a lot about people. When you're teaching, does how people show up for yoga say a lot about them? Do you ever
Yeah.
analyze
I
yeah,
analyze
okay, tell me,
everybody.
yeah, what are you noticing?
I mean, it's their energy when they walk into the
Yeah,
place. I guess I should back this up by saying, when you have a traumatic childhood, and mine wasn't nearly
yeah,
as traumatic as other people, but we've had experiences where we internalize them essentially the same.
totally.
It's a fight or flight experience. So we talked about this too. I used to
Mhm.
have to read the room. You have to understand what's happening from every aspect and every corner in order to, keep yourself feeling safe and or to predict behavior that's coming to you.
Right.
So I have that skill from my childhood. And so when people walk into the studio, I'm highly empathic and I can really just feel
Yeah.
like many other people how they're feeling. Then there's the aspect of how are they carrying themselves? Do they walk into the studio and their shoulders are rounding forward? Are their feet
Mhm.
turned out a certain way? Because then that's going to tell me how they're going to stand in their practice and the adjustments that we need to make. So it's really patterns especially when I see people over time, the
Oh,
patterns of
yeah.
behavior that you see. And that comes out in how we walk, how we move through a class once we put ourselves into discomfort or into poses that are challenging. Do you sink deeper
Yes.
into that challenge with curiosity or do you back out and protect yourself? That says a lot about your personality. But it's cool
Yes.
because then that offers that place for change.
It's so cool. And you, one of the things I love about your classes is you teach some of the harder classes at the studio.
Some of, yeah,
And yeah, and I think as far as the mental challenge of what you can put your body through and the way that you approach that, it's very synonymous with life, of like,
yeah.
do I take this risk? Do I risk falling? Do I get wobbly when I'm trying
Hmm.
this new pose? And it's really cool to be able to foster an environment where people feel safe doing that. Cause I've been to other yoga studios where it's like, here's the pose, do it or don't, whatever. But I think the
Yeah.
approach that you take when you are so intuitive to what's going on for people, you can kind of push people a little bit further.
Yeah, that definitely helps. It helps to be able to pay attention. And I think one thing that you touched on, there's so many different ways that you can teach a class, and it's really individualized, but it
Yeah,
depends on who's in the classroom and the style that you're teaching. So, the class that you're
totally.
talking about, we're talking about those tiny little intricate movements in between the poses. And then also, like you said, that fear of falling, letting that go and being able to try.
I do want to go back to your story with yoga. Back in 2014, when you started practicing, can you remember or take us back to what was it that actually drew you to yoga in the first place?
I knew you were gonna ask me this question.
Ah,
I knew you were gonna ask it. It was totally ego driven and vanity. I was driving through a
really?
parking lot. Oh, yeah. I was driving through a parking lot. I was currently working at a bike shop and I had like gained weight and I didn't feel physically myself. I've
Yeah.
always been pretty physically fit and I was riding my bike, but I just was not looking healthy. And
Yeah.
I was driving through a parking lot and I saw all these yogis just like floating out of a studio and they were just so sweaty and glistening and their
Yeah,
bodies
right.
were strong. And I was like, I want to look like them.
Yep.
But that was the studio that actually prompted that first bit of introspection that started to put me on this path. So I ended up going to
Interesting.
that studio. I took some classes. I didn't get it at first. I looked ridiculous, just like we all do when we walk into a yoga
Yeah.
studio. And the person next to you is doing handstands and whatever they're doing. But I took a yin class, which is, is more stretchy on the floor. And there was silence in between each cue for the poses. And that going deeper was more than just going into a stretch. It was going deeper into my mind. And that was the
Mm.
challenge that I teach about in yoga today.
Hmm.
Because that was that place that I slipped into that mindset, dropped the ego, and went there. And all of a sudden, it was like I started seeing myself for the first time from the outside and how I can
Yeah.
change. So that was
It's
it
so
was
cool,
vanity, and then it became this huge psychological journey.
which I'm sure you didn't expect.
No,
You
no,
expected to go in, get a good workout, get a little more flexible, right?
yeah,
And get stronger, and then you come out totally reflective.
just wondering what the fuck just happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it happen like that for you? Like, was it a pretty quick shift or did it take a while?
It was a quick click, but then I moved away from that studio and had to find another one. And the
Okay.
next studio that I found, I think was when everything really fell into place. And that was the point where I was really being challenging myself in my life with, not doing things I should be doing and
Yeah.
hurting people because I was being self-destructive. And that was just that time of life. And then I went to this other studio and started going there as the asshole Allison. But they would just say certain things at certain times that would just click. And I
Yeah.
didn't know that other people were kind of in this same place or have been down this journey before. So that opened up my mind to
Mhm.
being more forgiving towards this person that was going through this hard time.
Mm.
And then also understanding how every life experience that I'd had brought me to be this person that I am and that I can change the things that I don't like. And that was the studio that really set me on the journey to be a better person.
It's so cool how transformative it can be. And
Yeah.
I feel this way about a number of types of exercise. I feel this way about yoga, weightlifting, and boxing are probably my top three. I
Yeah.
think because there is such a mental challenge that go into it, but it's more about the internal experience too. Like we talk all the time about like that mind body connection and all of
Yeah.
that. And the question I want to ask you in relation to that is how do you try to teach people who were like you coming in, whether it's for vanity or just for a good workout or just because it's like fun to do? How do you try to get people to go to that place, or do you?
I suggest, and let's
Yeah.
give like the watch example.
Yes.
Bringing the watch into the classroom already sets the tone for your practice because you're not here completely, right? You're always connected to this outside world that pulls you away. And there are some people, as many times as I tell them to take their watch off and be present in a
Mhm.
class where we're not, exercising, we're resting and restoring our nervous system. And some people just don't do it. And some people really just will always be coming to yoga for the workout. And maybe
Yeah.
that's just because that's all that they need. Some
Right.
people come and they're there for the workout like me, and then it clicks later. And I don't know if many people start with the physical practice of yoga if they're looking for that peace of mind. I think they more
Mm.
gravitate towards meditation or some sort of a quieter class. If people have a curiosity, then I will tell them to, seek out further, like what they're looking into. What are they feeling? Where are they feeling that in their bodies and their brains? And how can they go deeper into that place? It's
Yeah.
really up to people to do the work. We prompt them as yoga teachers and we try to give Dharma talks, which is, bringing people to a different perspective or creating just a prompt for introspection within themselves. So it just depends. Does it click or doesn't click? And sometimes it doesn't click for a while. And then one day you open your eyes and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know that I could be here through just this practice.
Totally. It's kind of
Yeah.
that, like, it shocks you, kind of like what you went through, in your experience with it, where it just kind of feels like, gosh, I did not expect this.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like it can be whatever it needs to be for whoever
Whoever.
steps into the room, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's what's awesome about it too, is it's such a versatile form of exercise and meditation and
Yeah.
all of those things combined. It made me think about like what people think about yoga. And I'm curious, in your experience, not only practicing, but now since becoming an instructor, what do you think are the most common misconceptions about
Well,
yoga today?
the first one hands down is that you have to be flexible.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Everybody like, oh, I'm not flexible. It's like, well, if you came to yoga, it might help that.
Yeah,
But it's really, we always say you only have to be flexible in your mind
I
to
like
show up to
that.
yoga. Yeah.
Yes,
And just be open to a different experience. And that's really with anything. And
that's
that's
so
the
true.
other thing. Another life lesson found in yoga is just be flexible in your mind, show up, and who knows what you're going to experience, but how do you perceive that experience? I've gone to
Yeah.
places where I've had shitty experiences but at the same time I've learned something from it, how not to be or what not to say because I
Hmm.
didn't like that experience. That didn't work for me. And so
Right.
I carry that on into the next one. So
Yeah.
flexibility of the mind for sure, number one. And I think the other one is kind of just this fear of, I don't know if it's an
Yeah.
expectation of the self, like they won't be able to do it.
It's like a fear of
And
looking
that
stupid.
yeah, there's that and just fear of the unknown, and that's the other piece that, like, you're gonna be made fun of or everybody's gonna be
Right.
looking at you, and so that contributes to the fear, and so in that all-encompassing place, I think the fear causes a lot of misconception because there's so much wrapped into that, and it's
Yeah.
obviously a different combination for everybody as they, decide or not decide how they wanna come to yoga.
I have a big one.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah. That it's just stretching, that it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
easy or like not an actual workout. Even people that I've told, like, oh, yeah, I joined a yoga studio and like, oh, you can go in there and stretch or like,
Yeah.
what do you
It's
do?
not
I'm
hard
like,
enough.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like a huge misconception. So it's like funny how on one end of it is I'm not flexible enough or some version of it's too hard for me to do.
Yeah.
Right. And then
Yeah.
the other end of the spectrum is like, but it's not a real workout. Like what strength can you gain from it?
Right.
And that is a huge one that I think when people are looking for gyms to join, exercises to do, and maybe they go on YouTube and they try like a yoga YouTube video, which is good. Like there's some really great ones, but
Right.
then they're kind of falling into that misconception of what it can be?
Well, and sometimes people only try one kind. So they go to
Right.
one class and then they think that's it, that's yoga. And so they never
Yes.
try again. And I think I did that too. And then you realize how
Yeah,
many different styles there are, and different teachers have different teaching styles, which can be fun too. Then over
totally.
time, you realize that you need all of them. You're like, I need this stretchy class and this relaxing class
Yes.
and this power class and then sculpt class so that you can gain
Yeah.
muscle and to balance everything out. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there something that you wish, like one thing that you wish people could know definitively about yoga?
It'll just change your life, or it'll change your life if you want it to. If you have not only that curiosity about what's happening outside of your body, the physical body, but what's happening inside your body, how is this communication working between the brain and every corner of your being? How are you controlling your breath when you're in an uncomfortable situation to keep your nervous system calm? It's almost like this slowing down of the world outside of you so that you can process what's happening and act accordingly instead of reacting to what's happening. And there's so many, again, different connections between the practice and what happens outside in the daily life. That long enough, and your reflexes get faster and better. And it's the same thing with yoga in the opposite way. When things start happening to you in your life and you have uncomfortable situations being presented in front of you, there's this level of processing that can happen because the muscle memory is there now. We've
Yes.
slowed the world down, not just in our physical practice where we're practicing asana or the postures, but then in those restorative practices where we're practicing going through situations in the brain and how we're going to react to those situations. And then do we need to change behavior in that moment? That's the
Exactly.
practice.
It's huge. And you mentioned nervous system regulation, which is a huge buzzword in the world of mental health and psychology right now, and rightfully so, because all of our nervous systems are fucked. There's
Hmm.
no way you can exist in today and not have to put some sort of attention towards nervous system regulation just for the pure
Yeah.
sake of like dopamine addiction and our phones being, you mentioned our watches, like everything being right there that just screws our nervous system up. And
Yep.
love that correlation and that taking yoga and applying it to life because it's all muscle memory. And I think that's what people don't realize that if you practice anything long enough, our brains are really smart and really efficient. So sometimes this works against us in like if I learn that, red cars are not safe, that's going to generalize into everything else. My brain's going to be efficient and well, then maybe no cars are safe, right? And that's the way
Yeah.
it works against us. But there's ways that it works for us too. And this is one of them where our brain can learn, okay, you can tolerate discomfort. You can slow things down. You can control your nervous system in the way you want to. And that's not
Right.
just going to stop the second you walk out of the yoga studio. It translates into everything else too.
Yeah. And again, we're looking at patterns of behavior. So you step outside of yourself as an observer.
Mhm.
And
Right.
from that outside experience, you can see yourself act in a way like almost like this future person. How would that
Yeah.
future person act with
Mhm.
this uncomfortable situation? And I think that taking away that emotionality or just being able to quiet it down so that it's not causing you to react in such a way that allows you to approach conversations more calmly or situations more calmly. And from that, within the yoga standpoint, that's leading people to also stay calm. So now we're
Mm.
helping people walk down that same path and having a ripple effect of positivity instead of a ripple effect of, working from the ego and
Yeah.
creating this kind of more conflict within a situation.
Reactivity.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Because if I'm
it's
reactive towards you, you're going to be reactive towards
100%.
me. Yeah.
Yes.
Because
Yeah,
now we're
and
protecting.
yeah, we're defensive, we're protecting, we're more inside of ourselves versus, like you're saying, observing, maybe not even just
Hmm.
ourselves, but the situation. And I think that being able to regulate your nervous system, slow it down, get outside yourself and observe really how do you respond to that discomfort? Because we are
Right.
so quick to say, well, you responded this way, you reacted this way. Well, how did
Hmm.
I respond? And
Right.
how did I respond in this position in yoga that was really challenging for me when I fell over? Did I get back up? Did I do it? Did I look at what I could do differently? I just think
Right.
there's so much that translates into ourselves outside of the studio and ourselves in relationships, all of it. It's actually
Yeah.
really one of my favorite things about it.
Yeah. It can teach you self worth, because you can reflect
Yes.
on your, like you said, relationships and you go and see things from all sides. And I think, especially people who grew up in a certain way and they didn't have that
Mm.
outside influence, that different perspective. I talk about like in physics, and it's really simple. An object in motion stays in motion
Yes.
unless acted upon by an outside force. Right.
Right.
So people who grew up with this one type of perspective, life has to be lived this way. that puts a lot of rigidity into how they move forward. So those people are going to
Mm-hmm.
have a harder time with the practice than the people who were taught to be open-minded or to explore or to have curiosities. There's so many different people, so many different situations, and so many
Yeah.
things that can be observed from this practice.
You mentioned self-worth, and I was going to actually ask about that. We talked about how, as far as mental health goes, yoga can help with nervous system regulation, all of that. How have you seen yoga help with self-confidence, self-esteem, self-worth, identity?
I think it's stepping onto the mat in general. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what state of mind that you're in. You can go onto the mat and just lay there. I actually did that in a practice. I was doing like a 90-day challenge or a 30-day challenge. I can't remember which one. I worked like 80 hours a week as a bartender and I was
Mm,
doing this challenge. And there would
oh
be
my
days
God.
that I would just step onto my mat and I would just sit for an hour, maybe just in child's pose. And that was another thing that really taught me about this practice is that your self-worth is honoring your body.
Mm,
And that creates boundaries for you also. So by honoring your body and feeling, how do I feel today? How do I feel mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually? Am I being torn apart by something? How can I honor my body in this moment on my mat? And that goes back to taking breaks when you need to, catching your
right.
breath. And I think just from that, you start to respect yourself a little bit more. And that just builds over time, even how you stand so that your posture gets a little bit more right. You become a little bit
Right.
more open. That in and of itself breeds confidence. I'm comfortable in my own body now that I can stand tall and
Mm,
walk through this life a little bit more open. And I think
yeah.
that's really cool too.
I actually got shivers when you mentioned self respect because we always talk about self esteem, self worth. And for some reason, self respect feels a little maybe more vulnerable for people because it feels a little more intense, right? Like it's kind of in your face if you say, like, are you really respecting yourself right now? And I think that that correlation with what you're talking about is so empowering for people. Like the journey to go from maybe like a less confident posture or like even people who go too far to the extreme who don't honor their body in the way of like, maybe I do need to take a break. Maybe I do need to take a modification here. They just push, 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 not really knowing
Yeah.
themselves. You kind of lose that self respect in those ways. And then, like we said before, how does that translate outside of whatever exercise you're doing too?
And I think that sometimes those people are that could be just embedded in them, to
Yeah.
push and push. And that's fine. But then that goes back
Right.
to again, checking in with the body when you start. That's grounding. That's the
Hmm.
process of grounding before the practice is how do I feel today? How is this going to affect my practice? What do I need? So you think about these things. That way, when you go through that practice, you're more capable of communicating and hearing the
Mm.
messages to honor your body.
Yeah.
So
Do you have a piece of advice you'd give to somebody who shows up and has a hard time with that mind body connection in the way that we're talking about it?
just time,
Yeah.
practice. Yeah.
Which is
Just
the
time and
hardest
practice.
thing for people sometimes. They show up and they're saying, "Well,
Mhm.
this isn't for me," right?
Yeah.
Or it's just not it today. And then they're so focused on usually the body piece versus mind body connection. So taking that a step further for people who kind of go that route of, well, it's taking too long. It's not for me.
Impatience. Yeah.
Yes.
The stillness. That's talking about the stillness. So, one of my favorite things that has happened, and people say it all the time, Allison, I just can't get my mind to stop racing. And
Yes.
this expectation that you should be able to lay down on your mat. And because we're in a yoga studio and on your yoga
Yeah.
mat, your mind should just all of a sudden be okay. And that's
Right.
not the case. And there are some days that you come in there and it's just loud, or for the people that have never gone into that stillness, they don't understand how to keep the body still. Those are the people that feel the chaos the most. And so I
Mm-hmm.
tell them it's time and it's a practice because the more that they do it, the more that they are used to inviting the breath in to calm the
Mm-hmm.
body down. And it's over and over again. And all of a sudden, these people come to me and they say, Allison, I was able to quiet my mind for like this much. And I'm
Yep.
like, that's great. Because
Huge
all
win.
yoga, we're talking about calming the fluctuations of the mind. So the fluctuations of the mind can be like this some days. And so we
Yeah.
use the breath and
Yeah.
then create little longer spaces in between each thought each time.
Hmm. It's so cool. I always hear as a therapist, well, deep breathing doesn't work for me, or like meditation doesn't work for me. And that makes me want to scream because it is just about practice. Physiologically, if you can get yourself to that place, if you practice it, it's not that it doesn't
Yeah.
work for you, it biologically works for your body. and your brain.
Right.
And so it's less about, oh, I'm not somebody who can meditate. I'm not somebody who can do deep breathing. It's not that. It's this concept of practice and like patience with
Discipline.
yourself and discipline. Yes,
Yeah.
discipline is so big.
Yeah. And we all falter with it. I can say that since
Totally.
I became a yoga teacher, I haven't been waking up every day and meditating. I don't
Hmm.
necessarily have my own practice every day, not right now. And, I've had kind of a crazy year. So I give myself a break for that. But then you realize, behavior wise, what pattern am I falling into? Okay, now I have to come out of that pattern. Now I have to get
Exactly.
back into, being a certain, type of person so that I can walk the practice that I teach.
Yeah, yeah. And
Mhm.
so again, then circling back to that stillness piece and that
Yeah.
being so hard for people. And I think that's, like I said earlier, a symptom of society and everything's at our fingertips. And I did an episode a while back on delayed gratification and how we need that. And actually, yoga is a big practice of delayed gratification, right? Like you're in a position that is maybe uncomfortable and then you breathe into it and then you sit into it more and it becomes more comfortable, or the relief that
Yeah.
comes after shavasana at the end. There's so many pieces of that that I think can lean into delayed gratification, but stillness is so hard for
Yeah.
everybody.
And one of my favorite experiences was stillness, which is why I promote it. I tell people don't drink water during shavasana. Like
Yeah, last
sit
night
your
in
ass
class,
down and be
we're
quiet.
dying in
That's-
class last
Yeah.
night and somebody goes to drink water and Allison's like, "No, it's
Put it
shavasana
down.
time. You sit down."
Yeah. I am. And I think that you need, just as you need teachers who can give you that reprieve in those
Yeah.
moments. And I mean, if you really need a sip of
Yeah,
water,
of
obviously
course.
grab a sip of water.
Yeah.
But I want people to understand that this is that moment, and I want to give people that moment. And I
Mhm.
think it's really important. So that's part of how I teach is to kind of push people into that discipline of just giving yourself a little
Yeah.
bit of silence and a little bit of stillness.
Yeah, that's the thing. A little bit goes a long way. Like, I don't
And
think
then
we
you get a
realize
taste. You're like, oh
it's
wow,
the
what was
best,
that? Yeah.
the best
And
feeling.
I had just an experience with a teacher. I can't remember who it was or where it was, but they
Okay.
said, don't even pay attention to the sweat dripping on your face or a hair that's stuck to you. And I
Oh,
took that in Shavasana and stillness. And instead of reacting to these things happening on my body, I was able to say, okay, now I feel this sensation moving across my face. And then I wouldn't notice it anymore. So you would feel these things and maybe they would still be there, but because you're just observing them, they're no longer this threat that needs to be acted on. You can
yes.
just, and that was some of the deepest meditative places I've ever gotten to moving through that
I bet
process.
that is my biggest weakness when it comes to stillness in shavasana because I'm
Yeah.
such a sensory person. So, like, I
Yeah.
feel the sweat dripping or I have a hair that's tickling me,
Hmm.
which actually makes me, you and I both have ADHD. So, I think this is a
Yeah.
perfect segue for this conversation of the benefits of yoga for ADHD.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, just the element of focus in general.
Yes.
And I think that's why, there's certain type of people that with ADHD that need this. And
Oh,
it's,
yeah.
I think the physical practice is so helpful too, because we have to focus so much because now our bodies are in these weird positions and we have
Yes.
to control that. And so for us, all of the chaos all of a sudden just kind of goes to those places that they need to. And that's
Mhm.
energy
Mhm.
management too. So putting the energy into the places that it needs instead of
Mhm.
this like frantic, a little here, a
Right.
little there. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's so true. I also think about executive dysfunction and that paralysis we get into of the, oh, it feels too hard, right? And
Hmm.
yoga is just a concept of, oh, it feels too hard, but I'm going to do it anyway. And so, like, again,
Yeah.
teaching that discipline and more so, I think when I think of ADHD in the lens of that, it's like wiring your brain around the barrier. Like, discipline is a barrier for every human being, right? We don't
Right.
like to stay disciplined. With ADHD, it's less that and it's more like, God, I want to fucking do it, but I can't. Like, I physically
It's a block.
can't.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I think that this teaches people routes around those blocks of like, okay, so if I feel like I can't do a handstand or I can't stay in this pose for as long as I need to, or I can't balance or whatever it is, it can rewire your brain to be able to recognize, okay, you have a barrier. You
Yeah.
paid to be here. Like you
Yeah.
want to get something out of it. So try,
Yeah. Right.
and I think that that is something that can translate into executive functioning too.
And beyond that too, we talked this year about, me finding out a pattern of behavior that I was entering into.
Yes.
And I just started my own LLC, and had a seizure last year. And so that was
Yeah.
really impeding on my growth with everything. And instead of focusing on my stuff, somebody prompted me with a project and I said, yeah, I'll do it. And when
That
I do
shiny
things, I like to,
object. Yep.
yeah, full force. Let me get right into it.
Yep.
And I had realized after a couple months, I'm like, oh shit, like I'm just doing the same thing. And that's
Yes.
again goes back to being able to recognize your patterns of behavior. And you do that in this quiet place in your mind where you don't
Mhm.
have these distractions pulling you away.
Yes, it's all about going back to the basics. We get
Yeah.
distracted by the shiny objects. We get distracted
Yeah.
by the excitement, and that's not just an ADHD thing. It's much more intense with ADHD, right? Harder
Yeah.
to
Let me do it. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. I'm ready.
But that is just a symptom of being a human being. And I think being able to go back to the basics and have a home base. And yoga teaches us that too. Like if this pose isn't here for you today and it was yesterday, that's okay. Go back to your basics. Like there's always an adjustment you
Yeah.
can make and still gain something from it. And having that be a foundation, I think is really helpful.
Yeah. Just respecting the body. You talked about
Respect.
respect.
RESPCT, man. Okay, so tell me, I'm kind of shifting into society, which I know we love. Tell me what's one bit of like either wellness advice, wellness trends, like what do you see going on in the world right now that you wish you could shake people and say, don't do that, come to yoga instead?
I think just trends in general.
Yes.
Honestly, trends in general. Take this creatine, do this exercise, and people just fall into those places, which
Yeah,
influence is great because it sparks curiosity and people start trying things and they figure out what works and doesn't work. But it's
sure.
the people that dive straight head first into something and it might not feel good to their body, but they keep doing it. So it's
Right.
this kind of expectation that, oh, this person lost 40 pounds doing this exercise routine and eating butternut squash every day. That might not work
Mm,
for somebody and actually be
hmm.
counterintuitive to their being. So I think one piece of advice would be treat yourself as the individual that you are
I
and
love
understand
that.
what you need for yourself. And the hard part is some people just don't know what they need. Some people don't know what they need nutritionally,
Yes.
physically, mentally, and that's the other aspect that is difficult.
Yeah.
So,
I was talking to somebody a while back about actually, it's a client of mine who's a personal trainer. And she was talking about how she started out as an educator and she has transitioned into being a personal trainer. And one of the things that caused her to make that shift was looking at like in the education system, we don't learn fuck all about anything that actually has to do with health. Or at least in our, I don't know what they're learning. I have a kid going into school this year, so maybe it's changed. I'll learn through
let
her.
me
But
know.
like, I will. Health
Yeah.
education, when we were young, I couldn't tell you one thing I learned other than don't have sex and like wear a
Right.
condom if you're like, but nothing about nutrition or what's good for your body versus what's not. Like, and so I think it sets, especially millennials, probably every human being, up for this trap of falling into trends because, like you said, we don't know what
Yeah.
we actually want. And I love what you said about like treat yourself as the individual you are and find what actually works for you. Cause
Yeah.
we don't know. Nobody teaches us.
Right. Yeah. And it's a self-learned process if you have even the wherewithal to know that you should be interested in yourself.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like some people just don't even know how to be interested in what they're
Well,
doing. They're just
let's look at it
going
this
through it.
way. You just made me think about this that the only times we're taught to be interested in our health and our bodies is through the lens of do other people think I
Yeah,
look bad?
yeah, yeah.
Right? So
Or
it's
once we're really
never
sick. Yeah.
exactly. Right.
Yeah.
It's not this like again caring about your body through the lens of like, well, I want to be able to live the life I want to when I'm 60, 70, 80 years old. And
Right.
there is a shift in that I think because more people are talking about this stuff. But for most people, when they say, I want to lose weight, it's because they see a picture of themselves and they're not happy with how they look, or somebody made a
Right.
comment, or they're insecure about what people are thinking versus, you know what, like I want to be strong as fuck. Like I want to feel good. I want to feel grounded in my body. I want
Yeah.
to have energy. I want to
Yep.
sleep better. So I think that's such a inverted way of approaching things that we all naturally gravitate towards.
Well, and I agree. And if you want to go back to this again, 10,000 steps.
Such an
I didn't get
arbitrary
my,
number.
yeah, well, there's that. And it's just like, it just was a number. And
Yeah. It's just thrown out there.
this will work with like this little bit of research and marketing, but
Hmm.
people live and die by that. And the problem is you worked all day. You ran around with your kids, you made dinner, you got on the bike earlier for 10 minutes or whatever you did, and you're only at like 3,000 steps and 1,800 calories for the day, but you're physically, mentally, and emotionally exhausted. And now
Mhm.
you're going to add on top of that because you didn't hit your 10,000 steps, you're still a piece of shit. That does not work. And so we have these unrealistic expectations driven by a watch that doesn't even measure your heart rate properly, and we're
Right.
putting all of our energy into that feedback because we need something to tell us we did a good job
Yes.
because we can't tell ourselves.
It grinds my gears, not only
Mhm.
as a therapist, as a human being, as somebody who has fallen victim to this so often as we
Yeah.
all have. And that's the thing, like as we're kind of tying it all in, the way that your mind is able to adapt, people don't recognize how much of a superpower that is
Yeah.
because we all get sucked into these traps. We all are hardwired to look out for these threats, right? I always say
Right.
when I talk to people about anxiety, anxiety is a biological function. We were wired this way to look out for the saber-toothed tiger back in, when we were cave
Yeah.
people. Now the saber-toothed tiger for us is being fat or unattractive or not accepted. Like, so our body's
Mhm.
responding to those things as if it's a saber-toothed tiger just because of our biology. But we don't recognize the superpower that our brains have to be able to rewire that. And it is
Yeah.
hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but again, I think yoga is a great opportunity to do that because the setting of it is to slow down, to be present, to
Right.
show up as you are. And then before you know it, your body's changing because it is a good workout too. Like it's kind of
Yeah.
this like dual parallel process. And I don't think people realize that.
Just bringing everything together and giving it a moment.
Yeah,
To
exactly.
hear and to see and to speak to whatever it is that you need to give your attention to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah.
Okay, I have one last general question and then I have some fun rapid fire questions for you. Okay.
Okay.
So, my last grand finale question, and we've kind of touched on some of this, so feel free to repeat yourself and just kind of hammer it home. But what is the biggest lesson that yoga has taught you about being a human being?
I would say it's just that life is practice.
I'm
Life
going to
is
get a
the
t shirt
practice.
with that.
Yeah, I think that that's just the biggest thing, and that's what you learn. You go to your mat, it's a practice. You go to the gym, it's a practice. It's not gonna be the same every day. You're not gonna feel the same every day, but who cares? You come back and you do it again.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with life. You fuck up, you fail, you fall, and you try again. And maybe you decide that the thing you failed at really wasn't for you anyway. And that's
Hmm.
okay. Like I had a corporate job, I failed at it. Why? Because I am not somebody who is meant to be in a corporate job.
Yeah.
And then you analyze, okay, well, why? Where have I come from and what skills do I have from that existence? What do I love to do? How do I love to feel? And all of a sudden, all these things came together. This is my example, came together for me. And I was like, well, I guess I'll just fucking teach yoga. However, it's not that easy for some people. And I
Yeah.
know that I don't have kids, and I'm grateful that, that I'm able to make that switch financially. It was terrifying going from
I bet.
making, $5,000, $6,000 a month to making potentially nothing. And I know
Yeah.
not everybody can make that jump. I'm very fortunate. But if you're able to, if you can take a look at your life and see what you love, what skills you have, and respect even those skills that come from trauma,
Mm,
those are sometimes our superpowers, like you said.
totally.
Bring all that together and your life all of a sudden might just shift. Your thinking
Yeah.
might shift. Your limits on can you do this life that you really want? And you've always said no, maybe you can. Maybe it's not right now, maybe it's later. But just this idea and you just keep it kind of at the forefront of your mind and that's then you're open to the signs that
Hmm.
might bring you to that place that you want to go. Yeah, it was a long-winded answer, but
No, it's
you know.
perfect. And I really like that concept. And I think that in a world of everybody working so hard to achieve this, now I've made it. Now that like I want to reach the
Yeah,
life that I want. Like, what is that
yeah,
even? And I think allowing yourself to look at life as a practice and be open to things and growing in that way is probably the best
right.
advice anybody could receive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yay.
Be
All
the
right.
individual that you are, right? So,
Yes, exactly. Honor it.
yeah.
Okay. Some rapid fire. You ready?
Yeah,
Okay. Morning, afternoon, or evening yoga?
afternoon.
Interesting. It's very hard for me to not ask why.
11 to 3.
The prime window. Okay.
That's my time.
Favorite yoga pose?
Oh my god, this is not rapid fire in my brain.
That's
Pigeon, I
okay.
guess. I love pigeon pose. Yeah.
I do too.
I love pigeon.
Oh, it's
Just that good
good.
hip opener or good hip
Oh,
stretch. Real
I've
nice.
always loved it. Okay, least
I
favorite.
used to hate it.
Did
So,
you? Well,
yeah.
so it used to be your least favorite. What's your least favorite yoga pose now?
I don't know if I have one, honestly.
Really?
Used to be Warrior 2. I used to hate
Yeah.
Warrior 2. It was so
Why?
hard because it
Like
was
the
hard.
proper form of it and
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
and then, the challenge then became, okay, how can I push myself into this pose and ignite more muscles
Yeah.
so I can feel more supported from my legs? And so over time then, after those adjustments, I
Yeah.
started to love Warrior 2. So,
I love it.
it's
See?
it's just a hate and then love kind of a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. My current least favorite is dolphin.
Yeah, yeah, that one's a bitch. Yeah,
Yeah, it's the worst. Okay.
and it's always at the end of class. So,
Yeah, seriously.
yeah,
Okay. One thing you are currently working on personally.
discipline,
Discipline. Yes. Is that an
discipline.
ongoing working on, or is that like recently you've been like, I'm going to work on my discipline?
Yeah, it kind of came about this year again because I pretty much had a year that was just trash.
Yeah.
And so I knew that because I went into more of a depressed state for the last year. I was pretty depressed.
Yeah.
That coming out of that, what do I really need to start to get to the places I need to go? And that's just discipline, discipline getting on the computer, discipline getting up and getting to my practice, discipline
Yep.
getting to the meditation point of my day. So it's that discipline that helps drive the motivation and to get things done. And
Yeah.
especially for people like me and you, we need a lot of
We need it.
discipline. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Okay, good. I like it. Your current obsession, yoga related or not yoga
Crispy,
related?
crispy kale.
Crispy kale, like the kale chips?
Like, I cook it on the stove in olive oil, and I let it get a little bit,
Oh,
like, crispy, and then I do just salt over the top. I'll just sit there and I'll just eat it. So that's my current obsession,
that
crispy kale.
sounds so good. The
Yeah,
texture of it sounds amazing.
and then the salt, and you get, like, an
Yeah.
oily they're almost just like regular chips, but I don't know. I just had it before we got on here.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm gonna have to try that. Okay, and then grand finale, what is one thing that you hope listeners remember from this conversation?
I mean, again, going back to life's just a practice. Don't
Yeah.
be so hard on yourself. Show up and try new things and enjoy the failure.
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
because it's just a part of the process
it
of
truly is.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life is such a process. And we have to, I think, really harness those failures and learn from them, like you said. And,
Yeah.
you know,
And just have a lightness about it
yeah,
too. I mean, how exhausting is it to hate yourself because you failed at something you tried hard to do? You know?
seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think
So
that's perfect. Okay, good. Well, my friend, thank you so much for joining me today. Tell people where they can find you.
yeah, so I am on Instagram. I delete it every day for a few days at a time. I really hate social media, but I still post every once in a while. So it's Allie, ALLI underscore yoga, YOGA underscore blah blah, BLAH, like Alibaba, but Allie blah blah. So I do have a professional Instagram as well, but honestly, I can't manage 2 pages. That's
No,
just
it's a
too
lot.
much. I just don't care enough to do it. But I am on there and I'm at Yoga Cave in Naperville, Illinois. And actually, since we're on here, I do
Yeah.
have we are running a charity this month for Adopt Pet Shelter in Naperville. So we're taking monetary and item donations for the entire month. And we have 3 classes open to the public on Friday the 17th from 6 to 7:30, Saturday the 25th from 12:30 to 2, and then the following Friday on the 31st from 6 to 7:30. So if you want to come do some
Yes.
free yoga,
Free yoga
that's where
and
we'll
support
be.
the puppies
And support the puppies and the kitties.
and
Yeah,
the kitties. Yes, of
and the
course.
kitties. Yeah.
Yay. Well, thank you again, Allison. This was one of my favorite conversations. I really appreciate you being here. As always, feel free to reach out with questions, thoughts, reactions, and I will see you guys next time with another new episode. Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Healing Unfiltered podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone who might also love to tune in. And as always, be kind to yourself, others, and the world. See you next time.